Hello, everyone. My name is Mark from the Misplay Podcast, and you're listening to Eternal Journey, everyone's favorite Eternal podcast.
Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
Greetings, all my friends and Puntawans and great Eternal players out there who are listening to Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things Eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and this is episode 116 of the podcast, where we are going to be questioning some expertise and draft skills of my fellow co-hosts and friends that are on the show about what they're doing to succeed in Cold Hunt. So without further ado, I want to welcome my good friends, starting off with John Holio. Buddy, welcome.
Howdy, howdy.
And then sitting across from him on the internet is Darth Herman 2, the underscore himself. Alex, how you doing, friend?
Pretty well. How's it going?
Going swell. All right. Real quick, just want to give a shout out to some great supporters of the show. We really appreciate you. Extinction, Chastity Weaver, Scarlet Harlot, Mercuro Blue, TV Kelly, and I'm So Bad. Thank you guys so much for all the support and what helps keep the lights on around this place. Alrighty, so our pack one, pick one for this week is catered, and I don't even know if catered is the right word, whatever.
Curated.
Alex gave it to us. Curated, thank you. There we go. All right, starting off with the commons, we have Stonebreaker Bow. This is a +2/+1 relic weapon for 2 Stone Scar. Overwhelm. Contract 2, give Stonebreaker Bow +2 strength. Calderan Captain is next. This is the 4/3 Gunslinger for 5 fire. Revenge. Your other units have +1 strength. We got Bog Fumes. This is a spell for 1 found. Give a unit -1/-1. If it has flying, give it -4/-4 instead. Then, oh my god, this pack is ridiculous. Find the Moment is next. This is 2 green for a fast spell. Give a unit +2/+2 this turn. Contract 3, give a unit an additional +3/+3 this turn. So 5+5/+5 total. Mature Avarax is a dinosaur for 4 time. It's a 2/2 with flying, and then +1 maximum power. Danger Bot is a 1/1 granted in for 1 fire. Revenge. When the enemy player takes non-battle damage, Danger Bot gets +1 strength. Nascent Wisps are is a 2/1 Wisp for 3 time. Flying and charge, and then finally Dive Bomber is a 2/3 bird for 3 Combre. Flying, pay 3 and sacrifice Dive Bomber to kill an enemy unit with 5 health or more. Going into the uncommons, we have Learn to Bite. This is a spell for 5 blue. Transform a unit into a 5/5 Carnosaur with Killer. Vermin's Feast is a fast spell for 6 Shadow. Inscribe, swap the strength and health of a unit with the strength and health of another unit. And then Frostburn. It is a spell for 3 Skycrag. Deal 2 damage to an enemy or 1 damage to 2 enemies. Winvoke, Fire, or Primal. Sending it over, since it was your pack, Alex, sending it over. You can start. Talk to us about the commons and uncommons before we talk about our rare.
So there's 3 commons that jump out at me that I've first picked many times, which are the Bow, the Captain, and the Moment. The uncommons, they're all good picks. Learn to Bite, Vermin's Feast, and Frostburn. They're all first pickable cards. This is a very difficult pack. Yeah, as far as like those cards go, I think I leaned with the Frostburn just because of the Invoke. I think is the best card out of those cards, but I seriously would not fault anyone for taking the Find, the Captain. The Bow I don't think is first pickable out of these because I'd rather stay open more in one color, but the Frostburn Invoke trumps that, if that makes sense. And then the Vermin's Feast is a very good Inscribe card, and Learn to Bite is a good removal with blue weenies that you can turn into big killer things. So yeah, those are all really good cards, and Frostburn for me out of those.
All right. What about you, John?
Yeah, this pack is insane. Obviously for a pack one pick one, um, like yeah, it's a little rough. Like man, it's really close for me between Frostburn and Find the Moment. Like I think I just have like a huge weak spot for Find the Moment, and I just like have had the most success with Justice decks, and I would play any number of these that I draft. Like even though there's a really nice win vote card here, like I think I would still take Find the Moment. Ugh.
I don't think you're wrong on that at all. Honestly, I
Yeah,
Find a Moment is absolutely amazing. The card is great, and like you already stated, how two of your favorite color combinations are Justice, so that makes a lot of sense.
it
I
literally
haven't
might be
had a lot of
50-50
success
for
with
me.
Skycrag, but like I wouldn't take the Frostburn expecting Skycrag necessarily. It's just like if I'm on one of those colors, I'll splash Frostburn. I don't
Right.
care.
Hmm.
All right, so let me see if our rare changes either of y'all's minds. We have Trial and Tribulations. This is a 2 Elysian spell. Deal 2 damage to each unit. Your units that survive get a +1/+1. John, what do you think?
I do really like this rare. I feel like if Elysian's open and there's one of these going around, like you know, on a later pick, I would probably take it. But if I'm taking a two color card here, it's 100% going to be Frostburn.
Okay. And Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I'm in this like the same exact mind frame on that. If I'm going to take a two-color card, it would be the Frostburn. The mini removal card has really gone up for me, and it does work really good in those colors. So that is good if you can pick one up. But man, can I change my pick to the Find the Moment?
Of
No, I
course.
can't. I already did the draft though, so it wasn't that. But yeah.
Oh, sad face.
Oh.
No,
I
this is a
definitely
great
know
pack.
some. I know some people that would take this Vermin's Feast, and I know some people that would take this Captain here as well.
Yep. Not so
Yeah.
much the bow, or the trials, but all those other cards are just so good.
Yeah, this is an awesome pack. Good job screenshotting it, man. Sweet. All right. Well, that's our pack one pick one. So let's dive into the show. Let's start off with an easy one. If it even is an answer, maybe not. I don't know. I have that knack. John, what is your favorite color pair in Cold Hunt at the moment?
Hmm. I mean, you know me. I definitely draft what's open typically. But if I have to like kind of pick one, it's like man, it's really close between Huru and Argenport for me probably. Um, I I guess my favorite's probably Huru.
Okay. Is there so two things, follow-up questions. A, do you think it's green in general is just a very strong color, or is it things specifically to those color pairs that draw you in? And then B, is it just kind of the removal suite with disarm and defend the treasury and stuff like that that you like for Huru?
Yeah, I mean it's got it all, right? It's got evasive units like it's got you just mentioned two of the removals. It's also got Chloric, and then some of the uncommons are like some of the best in the format with Shaman and Brigade Hall. And then like the Alchemy Student is also top tier, and then you've got the Aegis Lifesteal guy 4 drop, and these are just in Cold Hunt. I guess Huru is a little lacking in the draft packs, um, but there's like a lot of there's a lot of 3 drops, right? So you don't really need to worry so much about those in packs 1 and 4 if you're in those colors. Um, but yeah, it just has like at common and uncommon, it has like solid units and just like some of the better removal, and it just flow. If it's open, you're just like you have all of it you can possibly want.
Got you. What are some of the things that pull you into Huru, since you're kind of wanting to be Huru established by the time you leave pack one, versus because you're just gonna be trying to fill in the gaps in packs two and three.
Yeah, like if I start getting past things like the Huru Windvoke as well, I didn't mention that one. That's like one of my favorite invoke spells. Um, so like if those are coming, and like if I get past a good justice card, like a Brigade Hall, like I mentioned, which does happen occasionally. So, some of these other cards, I'm like, I still stay open. Like if I just have, some solid justice cards or some solid primal cards, or like Alchemy Student and Brigade Hall, like I would splash for those if I'm completely other colors. So like, I mean, I'm just gonna pick those up kind of regardless. But if I get to the end of pack one and I'm still getting past like Find the Moments, I didn't even mention that. It's like one of my favorite cards in the set. And if the disarms are coming late, like even if Primal or Justice are kind of getting cut a little bit, that means Hoover specifically is probably open. So like I take that as like a sign coming out of pack one. But I think in this format, it's really important that at least one of your factions is also open in packs 2 and 3, or you're kind of just going to have a subpar deck by the end of it. So I still try not to get completely married to what I'm playing coming out of pack one, but I guess that's like a different issue.
Yeah, I don't necessarily. I don't think it's format specific. I honestly feel like that's just the way Eternal works, right? Because of the fact that we have 2 draft packs. I think I've yet to feel comfortable in a format where I'm like, well, we have 2 factions open in one direction and 2 in another direction, and feel like I'm gonna get there. It always feels like a disaster when that happens.
It does. And I know like if I open like a really strong rare or something, like this happens every time I pack one, pick one a Zhou, for example, like I end up kind of forcing Stone Scar, and like my deck just never gets there when I'm like forcing a faction pair that early. It's like it's always a disaster for me in this format.
Got you. Okay, switching it over to Alex, buddy, friend, homie, you've been having quite a bit of success in this format as well. So talk to me. What is your, I mean, once again, I'm sure you're drafting the hard way and drafting what's open, like what John said, but all of us have a preferred faction where we feel like we're happy with it. So what about you? What do you like drafting in this format?
Um, so I guess I'll answer this in like my least favorite would be Praxis, and I'm just I don't like it. I have had the least success with that. I have tried it, but very seldom is it a 2 color deck for me. So like it's usually 3 colors, and those colors are usually Primal Injustice with Shadow or with Time. If it's mostly a 2 color based deck, it's like Argenport, Huru, or Feln. And with Inscribe, it lets you splash in very magnificent and crazy ways. So seldom are my decks just 2 colors or 3, and sometimes pushing even 4. And those are like the funnest and most successful for me, anyways.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that we've always leaned towards is the fact that if you can go 4 or 5 factions, you're going to be the one on the podcast to do it. So do you feel like the fixing is there? And if so, where do you prioritize your fixing to facilitate these 3 and 4 color decks?
So like 4 colors is really, you had to have gotten a lot of the power fixing to help that out a lot. But 3 is pretty easy to do with the Inscribe cards. Like, you have the Call the Hit and the whatever, the 4-1 that discards a card.
Eavesdrop.
Thank you. So I dislike not having a computer where I can look at stuff. But yeah, Eavesdrop, the Wings in green, and the 7 cost 4/4 weapon. In blue, you have the blue guy that John mentioned, the 4/4 Aegis, and the 2/3 Flyer, which is just a great unit, especially in like a base blue deck. And then just try to get as many of those as you can because it's free power. Like late in the game, it's useful. Early in the game, it's useful. And I've also noticed the decks that for me are the most successful have like 6, 7, 8, 9 inscribe cards as power. So you can really just cut the power. I've had a base blue deck that had two primal lands, and the rest were all cards. So you can really play with your power bases, and yeah, this format's super fun.
So I feel like it's the shorter list. So what are the kind of cards that you take over inscribed cards? Because obviously it sounds like you have a higher, you take them pretty aggressively, it sounds like. So what exactly are the cards that you take over inscribed? Because I feel like that's going to be the shorter list than the other way around.
Well, definitely like if it's a powerful card and what your base color is, I guess. I try to go out of pack one being a base one color and then splashing from there. Um,
Combat tricks removal.
yeah, it's like I lost my train of thought there. I'm sorry. Here.
No, it's all good. I mean, it's already well spread that this is very much a 15 power format because I mean, there's just so much inscribed. It's fantastic where it just lets you load your deck up with spells where you're able to just have a high spell count. I mean, I think it actually adds a little more complexity to it because then you kind of get that weird spot where you have your beta, but you're at 5 or 6 power and you're like, I don't think I have to inscribe it. I could probably draw the power for it. So you go back and forth while you're lining up your thoughts. John, where are you at on inscribe as far as how aggressive do you take it when you're drafting?
Yeah, I definitely have a threshold. And I mean, it also depends on the inscribed card, right? Like Eagles, I prioritize more than some other inscribes, or like, the really impactful ones like Bathe and Light and Vermin's Feast as well. And plus those are uncommons. But like, it kind of, it's like as I'm going through the pack, it's like, okay, I already picked up, two call the hits, and then like if there's a third call to hit versus like a good unit, I'm probably taking the unit, or something like that, right? Like it kind of it's like you want to stack up your inscribes while stacking up your other good cards. You don't want to like skimp on either.
So I was like trying to explain it in that way, I guess, too. Other than I take aggressively the tomes, if I already know I'm going to be those two colors, I snatch those up. The deck seems to work out better and smooth out with the power base if you have some tomes in there. And then the second and third pack also offer you some fixing as well. Um, Out of the first pack, a lot of times I'm super heavy on spells, and then I kind of beef up my unit count and unit in packs 2 and 3. And yeah, that's how it's been working out for me.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
same here. There's a lot of times I come out of pack one with literally one or two playable
Yeah,
units.
and it's like you're not even panicking really because you can fully
Yeah,
do it.
in other formats
Gotcha.
that could be a disaster, but it feels pretty normal here.
Yeah, especially when there's a lack of synergy between the draft packs and the actual cold hunt packs, right? So it's kind of you could be locked in like, oh yeah, this deck looks sweet coming out of pack one, and then you open up pack two and you're like, oh gosh, what direction am I going in? So I
Mm,
can understand that.
I think John will agree with me that as far as prioritizing cards, all the invoke cards, I mean, except for the Praxis one, and then that kind of stirs the deck and the inscribe cards that you take because you really want to cast the invoke cards. And
Man, that was
you're,
great, dude. You must have been reading my mind because that was exactly gonna be my next question. So go ahead, please continue diving into Invoke. Like, is that kind of a make or break in this format as it's been in the past?
it's pretty game breaking and altering. It's like who can cast the most of these uncommon invoke cards and who got the crazier rare off of it. A lot of the games are like that.
John, are you pretty high on the Winvokes in this format as well?
Oh, definitely. They're some of the better ones are very high on like my pick order, and yeah, I definitely get into 3 and 4 color decks because of Winvoke cards that I've drafted. Um, yeah, they're very good. Like, and I mean, it seems like Magical Christmas Land, but like you're in a game, right? And you're like, man, I just need like my only out here is to play this Invoke card and get this
Or
kind of
board wipe
effect.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, like board wipe or removal spell or whatever it is, and like man, it just like it delivers. Like it doesn't always, obviously, but like man, those things can really save your bacon sometimes when you're behind, and sometimes you just get some insane cards. Like I had this one draft. I think I was playing JPS, and I had like, you know, multiple Huru invokes and multiple like Feld invokes or whatever, and it's like it seemed like every game I was getting a Quicksilver Mirror in play or something, like kind of
Oh my
crazy.
gosh.
Yeah,
That is.
and
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, Alex mentioned the Praxis one. I mean, I've actually been playing and having success with Praxis and with that invoke card since they made it cost 2. I've definitely been playing it more. It's yeah, for only 2, like that's actually quite playable now, especially if you like,
It's
combo
still your
with like
least favorite though, right?
Overwhelm and stuff like that. Do what?
It's like your least favorite though, right?
Yeah, it is, but man, if I'm in
It's better.
practice,
It's
I'm slamming
definitely
those.
better. Definitely better.
Yeah,
The speaking of Praxis, then where are you at on that 1/4 endurance flyer? Do you
it's
think
good in
that guy's
practice.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Like, it's not a reason to go into it, but man, if Praxis is open, you're gonna end up with as many of those as you want to play.
Yeah, that is the
guy?
unit that you kind of end up with a lot. You're like, oh, I'm in Praxis. I'm desperate for units. Oh, here's 3 of those guys.
There's a little
They go pretty
tension.
late.
They do, yeah, they go very late. There's a little tension though in the 4 slot because Lotus Instructor is a very good 4 drop, but like if there's another time drafter in front of you, they might be scooping those up. So you may just not end up with more than 1 or 2 of those, even no matter how aggressively you're taking them. And it's nice that because like a lot of times in the draft packs, you'd be looking for those 1/5 and 1/4 flyers if you're in time, and like if you're in Praxis, those are not an issue at all in the draft packs. You can like scoop up all the good time and fire like 2 and 3 drops instead, which there's quite a few of those in the draft packs.
Hmm.
I mean, if time is open, your 2 drops are hopefully a bunch of what's the give killer, the Sarasaur or whatever. I had a deck
Hmm.
yesterday, I think with 4 of those guys. It was so good.
Sweet Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely looks like some design space that Direwolf definitely enjoys doing. Well, that's the second iteration now that we see of 2 drops that give killer, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they've definitely been ramping it up with. I mean, obviously, Time has the best units, right? That's what they're known for, and they've been killing it with these 2 drops. I mean, there was that one, what the Kassar or whatever, the Kieran that was the 2/2 that got buffed, buffed your team or
Oh yeah, that was a
whatever.
while ago. Yeah, that was a
Like
good one.
yeah, they've been, there's some solid 2s in here for sure. Um, Touching on Praxis just a little bit more, where are you guys on Ramba? Because I know I've seen quite a few drafters go back and forth on whether he's like a solid pick or not. Let's start off with you, Alex. Since have you gotten a chance to draft Ramba yet?
I mean, I have a very recent extreme bias because I played him like 3 out of the 4 games I had. My opponent dropped him and it like wrecked my face. So I think the card is amazing and I hate it.
Yeah, I got wrecked by one like yesterday. I it's like the Joe issue for me. Like if I pick it early and force Praxis, my deck is terrible and I don't do well regardless of my Ramba.
Fair, yeah. That's definitely one of the things that I've had to adjust myself being an adult.
Hmm.
Is like, all right, hold, like, okay, if you could play it, great, but don't force it, because then it's kind of one of those things where, okay, is this the game that I draw it and win, or is it the game where I draw it and lose? So
Yeah, like Joe is like almost worth forcing. It's just like the double pips makes it hard to splash, and like you're just straight up forcing Stone Scar, right? It's like it's kind of the same with Ramba. Like there's some bomb rares that I do force, kind like Spire Loyalist is kind of in that category because it has Inscribe. So like you can actually splash it. Like it helps you play your other Justice cards. Like if you don't get there in a game, um, and it's like basically a bomb. Like yeah, it gets removed a lot of times when you play it, but the fact that it's power means like you're not just train wrecking your draft
mhm.
to try
Well,
and find room for that in your deck.
so kind of going on this rare train for a little bit, because obviously that's one of the few cards that people get the least amount of experience with because they're rare and legendaries. Are there any rares and or legendaries that stand out to you, John? Like, hey, Windmill Slam, this card is great, that you've either played against or played with yet?
Yeah, the one I just mentioned, that's that's probably one of the only ones that I'll like force into a deck basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like there's some others that are just super. I mean, we talked about them in the set review. Cards like Solux and Curiox are just insane. And Joe, like if you get to play them, but those are all like double on the factions.
Hmm.
So
Like
What do you
yeah,
feel?
I think for me, the most win slammable rare, because you can like change course midstream, is the expedition gear.
yeah, that's enough. That's the other one with Loyalist. It's like I'm always gonna splash that if I'm not base time.
Where are you guys at on the two scepters? The green one that gives everything Aegis, and the shadow one that lets you steal your opponent's best card.
They're good. Like I the green one's like a pet card for me. Like I've played it so many times now. And I've even got like if Justice is even remotely open, I'll people will just pass that like because it's totally not splashable. Um, so like I've had like an absurd number of draft decks with that, and it usually plays out pretty good for me. Um, and then like the shadow one is just good. It's just pure value. Um, it's a little slow, so you know make sure your deck is not just going to get run over. If that's like if you played like a 2-drop and just that you could just get run over by an aggressive deck. So you need to have a solid early game if you're going to play the shadow one. But yeah, card's great. You get to play their best card, um, and you get to see like every possible fast spell they could draw in the game. Like when you're doing once it pops off, you get to see their whole deck. So yeah, it's just
Yeah, I
great.
think the information there is pretty huge for sure. There's no doubt about it. Alex, are you kind of in the same boat?
Yeah, I mean, I've never got to play the either of those, but yeah, I've been wrecked by them. They're good.
I've invoked the shadow one in a few games as well. I think I had it just in a draft deck one time, but yeah, I've invoked it a couple times too.
The Do you guys feel like there's an aggro deck in this format, or is Inscribe and just a combination of all the clean two power removal spells just too much for this? Like it's mainly a mid range to top end kind of format.
I'll let Alex take this one.
Um, there's definitely aggressive decks out there, and it's okay to draft it if it's open for you. That's usually the deck that will take out the slow, dirtly trying to do stuff late deck. So, and there's good mid range decks as well. I think it's just a well balanced format. You can get run over real easy.
Well, what deck is that? Is that like Stone Scar? Or is it
Like
Rakano? Because I remember, what was it, like 2 sets ago, where Rakano was just like, I mean, if you had a 4-drop in your deck, you were probably doing it wrong.
like the best aggro deck for me is Stone Scar with like 4 or 5 bows. You could just like beat your opponent down so bad. Which I kind of wanted
Bo
to
is
talk
so
about
good.
the 2-color common cards that kind of steer your drafts. That if you have a lot of them, just kind of make your deck good, and that's one of them. The bow. Also, Rakano can be aggro with you could have 5 breaches in a deck, and then pick up all kinds of what is it, the 4/3, the general? It's not a general. What is he?
Captain.
Captain. Yeah, people like pass that around like it's not good. Like that card is amazing.
Well, shoot, go ahead, man. Take it. I like that direction. Tell me about the 2-color common spells.
So breach the defense and the bow, along with the blue and green one. Always forget what that one's called.
Disarm,
Disarm. The Argent Port, 2-drop 3/3 that
marksman. Oh,
kills a lot of
Oh,
stuff.
that card is so good.
Like
It's
if you
one
have
of
5 of those in a deck, it's like, okay, how many of this common card do you have? And it's like that just makes your deck so better. And if you see those going around, that tells you like that's open. Like if you see one of those pick 5 or 6, you're like, okay. And
yeah,
then you
like
can
Justice or
literally,
Shadow could be
yeah.
cut, but you'll be seeing the marksman if specifically Argent Port is open.
And then if you can, that's the deck for me that works when it's 2 colors, when it has a lot of that really good 2-color common in it. The red one's like you end up with a lot of those because that's like the least, you know, one that's I think I would want to have in a deck. A lot of those, but
mm-hmm.
yeah, those really do steer the drafts a lot.
So going back to what John was saying earlier, do you feel like those are one of the signal points to let you know what kind of lane you should be in if you're seeing those dual faction ones go kind of late or mid pack?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it can kind of not come back on packs 2 and 3, but at least in the last pack you'll be getting it again. So you could fill out your deck really good on the last pack if the middle packs were a little suspect.
Yeah, and
Fair enough.
some of those Alex just mentioned, like those three, like the bow and breach and the marksman, those three, like I will splash those cards, like even the 2-drop. Like if I'm rocking with a shadow splash, I will put like some marksman in my deck. So
Yep, I've done it
yeah,
as well.
Wow, that's pretty impressive considering it's exactly just a 2-drop, but wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's like you can use it late in late game. It has some values of removal, and then you can slam it on turn 2 pretty often with all the fixing around.
mm-hmm.
So question, how are you guys still kind of windmill slamming betas and as many as you can are still as awesome as they were initially in the format, or have you guys kind of simmered down on them a little bit? John, you can take this one first.
Yeah, I guess I've simmered down. Like if I'm in time, I'm happy playing like 4 or 5 of them. But like I think I, there's like so many good cards. I think, and like I think my decks. Yeah, I don't want to say I'm like I want them to curve lower all the time because I do draft some control decks or whatever, and those definitely like the betas more. But I want to be splashing like an expedition gear or something to then be playing the betas.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not just gonna like play like a low to mid range Argenport deck with 4 betas in it very often anymore. Plus they honestly don't flow like that anymore either.
I was just going to say that I'm not seeing them as much as before. Everyone figured out that they're good.
Yeah, I mean the revenge on them is so good with those all the uncommons that give abilities. Yeah, all right. Actually, there you go. That's a sweet segue. Alex, what about you? Where are you at now with these 1-drops that can either buff themselves for debt or they could buff another unit?
Yeah, they're first pickable cards. They can definitely guide your draft. They're splashable. So they're just 1 pip, and I think they are all good. All 5 of them.
Are you always looking to buff another unit, or do you think just putting the buff on themselves early is fine? I mean, I know it's kind of draw dependent, but in general, what's kind of like what you're hoping to do with the card?
So like the red one, you want to put it on itself and just start being aggressive. The blue one, you're kind of sad if you put it on itself, but it's perfectly acceptable, right? But you want to put it on a big beater late. Um, the shadow one is very good on itself, good on other units, good on the like the blue pinging unit. Like you could do a lot of fun stuff with that one. The green one, lifesteal, that swings games and wins. It's splashable. And then the time one, it's the 4-drop, right? That's the time one.
There's not really a time one.
There's not a one that costs
Time
1, but
time gets like the Sarasaur that gives killer at 2 instead, and then the Lotus Instructor at 4 that gives overwhelm instead. Like
yeah, that's kind of what it is, right? And it's sad
yeah,
that it doesn't have the 1-drop that does it.
it's got
But
the stupid humbug.
isn't there a rare though? That I swear there was though.
The rare that gives either killer or makes a 1/1 deadly.
Yeah, Civ, she's insane.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
she's really
they didn't
good.
get
I
an
don't.
uncommon one, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't mind asymmetrical stuff like that. It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool though, right?
I mean, it's probably because they already had they had killer and they had overwhelm, so the only thing that would have been left was deadly, right? I think is the only thing that's left. I guess chart. Yeah, like that's the problem, right? Time would have the two key battle skills left in time would be deadly that they gave the shadow and charge that they gave to fire. So yeah, it
Yeah,
makes sense that all right. I don't think there's any other battle over. No,
Well, I
yeah,
guess red
overwhelm.
could be like double damage, but that's crazy, or first
yeah.
Oh,
strike maybe.
that would be
Maybe
absolutely
first strike
busted.
could have been.
Yeah, quick draw wouldn't have been a bad one. Yeah, I could get behind
It's
that.
not really a time thing though.
No,
No,
give
no, I
red
think he's
quick draw, and then time give it the one what red has. Give it charge because
yeah.
I
time
get
has
maybe
charge
they just
stuff.
didn't want Captain having quick draw because that's kind of insane.
That is kind of insane. But
Um, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I like the what John said about asymmetrical stuff. That's cool. I can get behind that. It doesn't have to be a cycle.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's nice to know just so you can go looking for stuff, right? It kind of helps you navigate the draft a little bit, but it is what it is.
When I said all 5 of them, I'm like, wait, there's no time one.
Well,
Like,
I mean, it's easy to think so, though, because I mean, I thought the same thing. I was like, well, time has at least 2 things that buff other units, so
so I basically agree with what Alex was saying about like the play patterns with these, except like I guess the flying one, it's like I guess that's obviously if it's in your opening hand, but like I think it also just kind of depends on which deck you're playing, right? I think like Feln and Skycrag, you don't mind running it out as a 2/3 on turn one. I think if you're in something more like Combre or Elysian, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
not Combre, Huru, like I think in those decks you really want to give it to a late game unit, um, like maybe a Displacer. Like if you're in Huru, hopefully like a nice Aegis unit, like a 3/3 4 drop or whatever, either the lifesteal one or even the Watchman or whatever guy in the draft packs with Aegis. Um, and then obviously if you're an Elysian, you have like Carnosaurs, warrior monks, like 5 and 6 drops and 7 drops that you'd much rather give flying. Like right, so I think it just depends if your deck is aggressive or late game for that one. I think you're spot on with like the charge guy. Like if you have it on turn one, you always run that out. If you have it late game, I think you do want to like work it onto something like ideally like a captain. Like all of these are so good if you put them on revenge units, especially like the deadly and the
Oh
charge.
yeah, oh so sweet. Yeah, most definitely.
And
Uh,
you mentioned the aggressive decks earlier, like Stone Scar and Rakano, and like I think those are definitely you can definitely those are the better aggressive decks in the format. But it's funny because those colors can also like you can also build a good late game deck in those colors. It's cool. Like it's just a really fun
Cojan,
format. Like I'm still trying things out.
right?
And there's like multiple deck types in just color pairs, right?
yeah, which is great. I mean, hey, Direwolf is game. They've got a solid crew, and they're doing some good work out there. The draft formats have been an absolute blast. I don't really feel like we've had a bad draft format in a minute. And even
Yes,
then, I
some
give.
people would disagree with you, but I agree.
This one
I mean,
for sure. I've never drafted a set as much as this one.
Yeah, me too. I know a lot of people are already they've been windvoked one too many times or whatever, but like I'm having so much fun.
yeah, Winvoke. I don't know. Like, of course, if you get some feel bads right when you lose, but at the same time, it is
You
what it
get some
is. At
feel
least you
goods.
could say, "What's up?"
You get some feel goods too. It's goes both ways.
Yeah, true story. Yeah. Um, let me see.
Just play
there's
more
one that.
backlashes if you're sick of getting invoked. Just play some counter
That's
magic. I had a
exactly
deck with
Yeah.
exactly
three
what I need.
negate effects the other day.
Yes, yes.
Right? That was so
Yeah,
Yeah.
playable.
I'll
I
play
mean, there's.
two easy and 3 no problem. Counter effects.
Yeah.
Go,
All
let's
right. I
go.
mean, that's a pretty good hot take. I'm glad you mentioned that because I mean that's something that we don't see in every format. So you guys both pretty high on negate effects.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
especially because
more
of
good ones here than normal too.
it's like a
Sorry, go ahead,
2 for
Alex.
1 against the invoke spell.
Hmm. Yeah,
Oh,
especially if it was like if they enter into combat like expecting to get the stolen augmentation off or something, then it's like even juicier because like it was probably an unfavorable combat to begin with.
Yeah, true. Man, that's super cool. Like I think it's great. I'm with you guys. I for one have no issues running counter magic in my draft decks. Granted, I don't think I've gone as heavy as 3 so far, but um
Yeah, I had like a Caleb's Choice, a Backlash, and a Storm Blast, I think.
okay.
or
Nice.
the blue rare that you can use as power too. Like that one's
Yeah,
good.
that goes in decks. I didn't have that in that particular deck, but yeah, like I'll play that for sure.
Super cool. The gosh darn it, it keeps popping in my head, and then you guys say something I forget. There's a question I keep meaning to ask about something in this format. I'm drawing a blank now on it. I don't think it was on Caloric Mix. What was it? Um, Windvoking, Inscribe. Oh, Eavesdrop. There we go. Eavesdrop. So in an Eavesdrop format, I mean that card. If your opponent's running Shadow, you pretty much just know they're running Eavesdrop, right? So are you guys pretty much sandbagging 2 power for as long as you can, or if you guys are just like, well, if they eavesdrop me, they eavesdrop me.
A little bit of
Good.
both. Like it just depends on how much power I need to get to and which cards are in my hand, right? Um, a lot of times those cards that you haven't played yet do cost 5, 6, whatever, and maybe it's like one of your best cards. Uh, yeah, in some of those cases, I do kind of sandbag, whether it's power or some cards I don't mind discarding, like maybe a 2 drop that I've drawn on turn 4 or 5 and don't really need on board, to kind of protect those key cards that are in my hand. And then sometimes, it's like I'm trying to get to 7 or something. It's like I got my 2 betas in hand or whatever. And it's just like, if they eavesdrop me, they eavesdrop me, whatever. I need to get to this high power level anyway, like as soon as possible. So it's kind of game dependent, but
That, that's a lot of like the adult making decisions or whatever that you have to do in this format. Like in the last one where you would sacrifice a power for an effect, and in this one it's like, do I inscribe this card? It's like, all right, I'm going to make the adult decision and not get the value out of this inscribe card and play it as a power. Sometimes you just have to do that.
Yeah, I've definitely like I always make the wrong call there. It's like when I sandbag the beta at 6 power, I go 3 turns without getting my 7th power, and then when I'm like, well, I'm probably not gonna see it. Let me go ahead and inscribe it. I draw the power the next turn, and I'm like, I just can't win. Um,
I think that's part of the algorithm.
oh, got you. Fair. That makes sense. The So with eavesdrop, where are you guys at as far as graveyard type strategies? Like I forgot what it's called now, but the inseparable or whatever it is, the 5 power
Mhm.
get 2 cards back from your void. Do you guys think stuff like that is less viable or the same as normal, even with it being an eavesdrop kind of format?
Uh,
Alec or John, go ahead.
yeah. Excuse me. I mean, that's just like we've kind of talked about it before. It's like a slower card anyway. I think if you're playing Inseparable, you probably have 1 or 2 eavesdrops in your deck. So you kind of have like some baked in protection against getting eavesdropped yourself in that sense. Like you just get your void back,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Um, and like even if they eavesdrop you on curve or whatever, I think there's still some opportunity for you to like trade off some units before you get that Inseparable online. But yeah, like I think if you're playing that card, hopefully you're playing like a grindier deck anyway, and you're not trying to close the game out, even as early as like turn 9, 10, whatever. So
I don't know. That just gives my point. It's way too many chances to drop bombs on me. Alex, where are you at as far as graveyard or void shenanigans in this format?
Yeah, they're definitely out there. They're not like rampant and out of control, but you could do some neat stuff with the eavesdrop, and
Okay.
there's a lot of like low costed heroes. So for that card that brings units back, like that cat, you can bring that cat back, and it's a 3/3 now. You can play it on the same turn sometimes. Pretty good.
Speaking of heroes, great segue again, man. That's another question I have here.
I
So we
can
did
be your hero, baby.
ambassador, right? We got introduced to hero in this format, so to speak. I mean, it's been around, but now they keyworded it, and it matters. I know everyone's still pretty high on victimless crime, meaning that there's probably not enough heroes flowing around. But sticking with you for right now, Alex, where are you at on ambassador? Do you think that card's worth kind of playing or not really? I personally am low on it. I don't even bother really seeing it, but I know some people have made it work. And then
Is that
follow up.
Is that the card I don't even know what you're talking about because I don't play it? The 1/1 for 2. Is that?
It's a
Yep.
1/1 for 2.
Yep.
Yeah. I've like messed with John, being like, "How many heroes do I have?" And he's like, "No, you know."
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for answering it for John as well. All right, easy enough. Moving on then, follow-up question. The 2/2 for 4 that draws you a card when it attacks. Where are you at on that guy?
Eh, I'm like so middle of the road. Like I've gotten wrecked by it. Um, it's like probably my last cut so often. If I had a lot of synergies, I would leave it in the deck, like unblockable stuff or giving it flying or something. But usually it's just attacking once and dying. So I'm not a big fan of that card, to be honest.
Gotcha. All right, and John?
I'm right there with Alex. It's like a synergy card for me. Like if I am just short on playables, like yeah, it'll make any deck in that case. But if I to actually want to have it in my deck, I want like a ton of combat tricks or like multiple copies of wings or whatever, like wings plus protection of some kind. But yeah, like it works like if I have like 6 or 8 combat tricks in like a Huru deck or something, that's where he really shines.
Right,
You
or
also like
Hojan.
or if he's in a deck with Hojan for sure. Like he's just like he's a 4-drop that doesn't help you stabilize at all. So like you also have to have a lot of good early interaction. Like so he can work in a deck with like like Skycrag where you have a bunch of Searing Fists and stuff, so you don't just get run over as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that can
Yeah,
remove blockers too.
yeah. The good thing is he, like Alex had mentioned, the guy is difficult to deal with because of the fact that you don't know if they're just trying to get the card off or if they actually have ways to back them up with like find a moment and things like that. So it's a little difficult, but yeah, I literally try to get them off the board as quickly as possible, as easily. I make them have it. If they do, they do. But if they don't, then well, it drew you a card. Congrats,
Yeah, that is
Uh,
the most show me card ever. Like, yeah, you show me,
yeah, I'm definitely not gonna let you just freely attack, just to for the value for sure. Um, I think that's it that I have as far as like super specific questions. I think everything else is more of gameplay style stuff. That I mean, there's all the caloric mix and find a moment and all that jazz. Searing fist is slow spell, so you don't have to worry about trying to play around that. But I mean, format's a ton of fun. There's a lot going on. There's really beware of there you go. That card actually that I find that card semi difficult to play around because it's only one to leave up. The your unit can't die this
The
turn.
difference.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, man. That card. It's
That's
just
good.
Yeah,
yeah,
I've splashed
it's
that one. Speaking of the 2-color cards, that's a really good one too.
yeah, it's just so good, man. It's I mean, it's not absolutely backbreaking, right? We've seen something like that before. It's not complete, but the fact that it's one makes it so difficult to play around because they could just easily leave it up every round. You know what I mean?
But it's like in that cards that cost 1 and leave a pause, like so it's easy to kind of suss out.
Yeah, for sure. But I, I guess the only time it's bad is when you're the person that has it has a less dominant or non-dominant board state, right? Where they're kind of forced to use it defensively, not for profit.
Yeah,
But
it's kind of balanced in the format because like if you're playing Xenon, you probably have like you know warrior monks and or embezzlers, right? And when you slam those, you a lot of times do the contract, which means you can't even hold up 1. So I think there's like it's kind of balanced. Like you can't do your ultimate technique that you want to do and hold up your 1-cost trick in those colors. So it's
mm-hmm,
kind of neat like that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I've enjoyed contract quite a bit. I think it's a great mechanic, add some depth to the game for sure. I think it's fun. I've liked this format definitely. Yeah, that's all I got. Do you guys have any closing statements before we call it here? Alex, do you have anything to add? Final shout out before we call it?
Uh, Nothing final. I think we did a pretty good touching of kind of a bunch of different stuff, actually.
Awesome. John, anything?
No, I, I don't really. Maybe we need to have a show on this, but like kind of more about how to build your deck with splashing and things in mind. Like I think a lot of people are still really hesitant about doing that, even with all the inscribe and stuff. Maybe they don't know exactly what they're doing, or like which cards to splash, which inscribes to play in their decks. Like I think we need to have maybe a whole show on that kind of thing.
Shoot,
Um,
man, that's me. I still have a hard time going 3 colors in this format.
yeah, I'm like I'm with Alex, like he mentioned earlier. Like I usually play 3 colors. And yeah, I'll even play some 4 color decks.
And
Like if my deck is 2 colors, it's just because that like that like we kind of mentioned the 2 color cards. Like I just got so many of those or whatever. Like and their power level is just so high. Like I don't even need whatever cards I was planning on splashing. So I do have some 2 color decks, but man, mostly 3 colors.
yeah, it really
Gotcha.
feels also with the 3 color thing. If you're playing more than 15 power, then you didn't prioritize inscribe enough, because there's definitely enough to just play 15, and that's really what you want to be doing.
I think my decks where I didn't get there on inscribe, I think usually for some reason tend to be Rakano. I don't know. I think it's because like it's like as I'm going through the picks, it's like man, I could take my 4th and 5th breach or this like molten feed or whatever, and I end up with the breach. It's like man, it's just that it's more impactful, and like I think those tend to be aggressive decks where you don't want you know a little awkwardness with depleted power as well. So like, and those have been good decks for me too. Like those are like the only times I'm playing like traditional 17 power decks or whatever. I think in those cases it can definitely be worth it.
I
But
would say
yeah,
that's happened
most
to
of my
me with
decks.
Rakano the most as well, actually.
Yeah, I think it's because like yeah,
You want to play. It's what you said, John. You want to play everything. There's just no room really to play depleted power, and most of the time, like your curve out is just so solid. But yeah, your card quality is there, where it's like, yeah, I don't really feel a need to inscribe any of this.
right. It's just I think it's a lot of times it's pick this medium inscribe card or a find the moment or another breach, and I'm always taking the find or the breach.
Yeah. You tend to
And
get
then
flooded a lot sometimes, though.
yeah, then your top end is captain that doesn't have inscribe either.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough. All right then. Well,
Maybe we'll do a draft with the gang session next time, or maybe we'll do that show topic. Maybe it'll
yeah,
kind of like
most
go
of
hand in hand.
Kind of like, yeah, discuss it during the draft. That sounds like a good idea.
That's
or
dependent
just
on the draft itself, but
It is,
yeah.
absolutely.
yeah,
We could hope.
I could just mock one. They'd be like, "This is what you open. What do you do?" Fair enough. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, and happy friends, thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate you. Hope you have a great time drafting. Until next time, as always, happy gaming.
Bye.
Good luck in your draft keys, everyone. Good night.